Good afternoon. This is Okapi 540. Just making a quick review of The Legend of Zelda: The Sealed Palace. I don't have a lot of time. I'm a really busy person, and um, with Tears of the Kingdom coming out in a week, this is kind of it. I wanted to do a review of the Sealed Palace, and that's what I'm doing right now. But just keep in mind, I won't have any like cool pictures or clips for you to see or anything. Um, my channel has a complete a complete playthrough of the Sealed Palace, so you can pick and choose what parts you want to look at. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Um, this will be a first non-spoilers and then some spoilers at the end, just so you know. And the point of this review is, first of all, to just record my thoughts. That's my personal mission with this about the game before Tears of the Kingdom shows up, but also to, just share, like, if you're interested in the Sealed Palace, should you play it or not? All right? So, what is Legend of Zelda: The Sealed Palace? The Sealed Palace is a ROM hack of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. To play it, that means you need a ROM of Ocarina of Time. Hopefully, you own the game legally, and an emulator to play it on. I used RetroArch through Mupen64, I think. I personally really like to play it that way because then I got the nice CRT filter. I was able to play with my N64 online controller that I have for my Switch. So I got the real, genuine experience, almost like playing it on my actual N64. So, if you're interested in the Sealed Palace, just keep in mind there's a little bit of technical know-how. You need to know how to patch ROM, stuff like that. There's resources for that online. It's really easy once you know what you're doing. Who is the ROM hack for? It's for people who have already played Ocarina of Time and maybe Majora's Mask. There's not really any references to Majora's Mask, but I don't know. If you played Ocarina of Time but haven't played Majora's Mask is the better game, so you should play that first before playing the Sealed Palace. It's made for really for people who have played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and want more of that type of game. The old classic N64 3D Zelda. It plays exactly like Ocarina of Time. It's really a reimagining of Ocarina of Time, so don't really go in expecting a new grand story or anything like that. It repurposes a lot of the cutscenes from Ocarina of Time. It's really something made for people who really love Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and want more N64 goodness. Like me, I am somebody who would be very happy if Nintendo's came out and said the next 3 Zelda games we're going to make is going to use Nintendo 64 graphics. You need a Nintendo 64 controller to play it. You can play it on a Nintendo 64. I'd be thrilled by that. Absolutely thrilled. So this game was very much for me. And if that sounds appealing to you, you should play it. The story, nothing crazy. It's a retread of Ocarina of Time, but it's like kind of confusing because sometimes it feels like it's a sequel to Ocarina of Time, and other times it feels like it's supposed to replace Ocarina of Time. For example, all the sages from Ocarina of Time are in the Sealed Palace. You're finding the sages just like you do in OOT, but they kind of talk to you like you know them, but you don't meet them until you awaken them in the Sealed Palace. And you kind of just, it's kind of just a given that you're saving sages, like you should already know that the sages are around, but then like no explanation is given for why they aren't around. It's weird. The story is that Twin Rova has infiltrated Hyrule Castle and is kind of prepping Ganondorf to be the new vessel for Ganon. Which again, if you've played Ocarina of Time, some of that sounds like a sequel, and other parts of it sound like it's replacing the story for Ocarina of Time. There isn't really that much story that actually happens in the Sealed Palace. Just kind of alluded to here or there. So don't go in expecting a big narrative experience, but if you've played Ocarina of Time, you know Ocarina of Time itself is very story minimal, and the real drive of Ocarina of Time, OOT's story is amazing. Leaps and bounds better than Sealed Palace. But the real drive of Ocarina of Time is how it's like dungeons, and more dungeons. You know, you go to one dungeon, then you do a little thing to get to another dungeon. That's the drive. Sealed Palace has that, and it's kind of just tied up in a nice little bow by some sort of story. Characters are fairly non-existent. Most characters from Ocarina of Time make some sort of appearance at some point, even if it's really brief. There isn't really any character, though, other than you, the hero of time, and kind of Zelda, kind of Twin Rova, kind of Saria. And that's about it. So nothing to write home about there. Graphics, fantastic, great looking game. Has everything I love about N64 Zelda graphics. That great blend of showing you enough to know what you're looking at and being vague and open to interpretation enough that your imagination can run wild with it. While all the graphics are reused from Ocarina of Time, the set pieces are actually a lot more interesting. The dungeons look more visually appealing. You know, in Ocarina of Time, particularly the temples, it's a lot of walking through brick or stone hallways that are blue or red or orange or stuff like that. The Sealed Palace has a lot more interesting stuff going on with its visuals. That was really cool. Like, there's some open air dungeons. It's cool. I don't want to spoil much more about that. I don't know if it would be able to run on an actual N64. There's a couple stuff that's like, wow, like really cool effects, and you're like, oh. I don't think even Majora's Mask could do that. As for dungeons and gameplay, if you like Ocarina of Time dungeons, you're gonna get more of it. OOT's dungeons, I would say, are like just a little better, but it definitely gives you the same fix. In some things, it does better than OOT's dungeons. The visuals look nicer. The level design isn't as tight. There are a couple dungeons, just a small amount, that have some bullshit that comes by being a free game made by novice developers, but not nearly as much bullshit as you hear about in other ROM hacks. There were really only like 2 rooms in the whole game that had me like pulling my hair out. It was only for like about 10 minutes each. The difficulty is about on par with maybe Majora's Mask. It's harder than Ocarina of Time, but if you've played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, there's nothing here that you can't do. The enemies are just a little tougher. The game has some great quality of life features where, for example, in most rooms, in most dungeons, you get, when you beat all the enemies in the room, a treasure chest appears. And now you never have to worry about the enemies ever again. What's in the treasure chest? Arrows, bombs, bomb chew. There's a shit ton of bomb chew in the Sealed Palace. And by the way, there are 0 bomb chew puzzles. So get ready to have 50 bomb chew the whole game and ask yourself, when am I going to use these bomb chew? Never happens. They hand out bomb chews like there's no tomorrow, though. But that's awesome, because then you can like backtrack to rooms without worrying about the enemies in them respawning. That happens in most rooms. Not every room. Some of the later dungeons, they stop doing that, and that's a little annoying, because you'll fight a bunch of Redead in a room and be like, whew! Well, I'm glad I won't have to deal with that. But you will. And they'll be right there waiting for you when you come back into the room. So that's not as fun. As far as the amount of dungeons goes, great. Same number as Ocarina of Time, which you may know has a very large number of dungeons compared to most 3D Zelda games. If you love how Ocarina of Time just throws dungeon after dungeon at you, Sealed Palace does the same thing. Most of them go by the same name as they do in Ocarina of Time. So maybe the first couple dungeons, you're going to be like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next. By the time you get to the Fire Temple, you're going to be like, okay, so all I have left are like the Water Temple, Shadow Temple, Spirit Temple, and Ganon's Castle. And that's about it. Although one of those goes by a different name. But that's like fine, because you're here for more of Ocarina of Time. You're not really here for like a brand new experience. You're like, I liked Ocarina of Time, I like the controls, I like the graphics, I like the music, I like the dungeons, I want more of that. That's what the Sealed Palace gives you, and I really appreciate that. In fact, with Tears of the Kingdom right around the corner, there's all this drama about like, will Tears of the Kingdom bring back classic 3D dungeons? Will the Divine Beasts be longer than they were in Breath of the Wild? Stuff like that. And some people are like really, really worried about it. And I was really thinking about it too before Tears of the Kingdom came out, but having played Sealed Palace, I feel like I've gotten my 3D Zelda dungeon fix. The quality of the dungeons in the Sealed Palace are not as polished as what Nintendo can produce, but it's about on par with many 3D Zelda dungeons in the series. And it totally gave me that fix. I don't feel like I need dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom. I'll be perfectly content now in Tears of the Kingdom if there are like no dungeons, even less dungeons than in Breath of the Wild. I'm all right. I got my fix. I'm ready to see what new stuff Tears of the Kingdom is going to bring to the table. So it's a week before Tears of the Kingdom comes out. I would say if you could play this game before Tears of the Kingdom, that's the time to play it, so that you're not worried about dungeons in TOTK, but that ship has kind of sailed. There was also one other note on gameplay. The game, Sealed Kingdom, actually used the control pad of the N64 controller way better than Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. In fact, it kind of made those two look dumb in this regard. They mapped the Mask of Truth to up on the control pad, the Iron Boots to left on the control pad. And by the way, just like with the dungeon names, this ROM hack recycles all the items from Ocarina of Time. Okay? No surprises. Every item in Ocarina of Time you're going to get in this game and nothing else. It's not like, say, the Missing Link, where you get something completely new. They get Iron Boots were mapped to left on the control pad, Hover Boots to right. I never got anything that was down. Oh, the Ocarina was mapped to down. That was great. I don't know why Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask didn't do it. I mean, you hold an N64 controller like this, right? But it really wasn't asking that much to, like, tap this with my right hand or quickly pop over here and put the Iron Boots like that, or the Mask of Truth. Made complete sense to me. Honestly, I don't know why Majora's Mask didn't do that for the transformation masks. I think it makes a lot of sense. So there's that. On the topic of music, not as good as Koji Kondo's score for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Get that out of the way. You're not going to hear anything in Sealed Palace that's better than that. But on its own, as an independent thing, I completely enjoyed the Sealed Palace's soundtrack. It gave me everything that I needed. There were songs I've been thinking about ever since. There were some duds, not really any stinkers. Pretty much every area in the game has a new song. Many songs are not remixes of songs from Ocarina of Time, but clearly inspired by them. For example, the overworld theme definitely sounds like Hyrule Field, pitched differently. One of the Ocarina songs you get is like the Sun song backwards. But overall, solid soundtrack. It's, again, just what anybody who wants more Ocarina of Time is looking for. I was very satisfied with it. Some particular highlights were the music inside. Can't say it would be a spoiler, but if you watch my playthrough, you'd know there are certain areas that are like kind of spooky, kind of like something's not right, and the house is there. I really enjoyed that song. Always made me excited to play the game. The house music for Sealed Palace is one of my favorites in the Zelda series. It's haunting and beautiful and cute, but also a little sad. If you played Link's Awakening, it's that type of house music, or maybe the Oracles too. It's in that tone. I really appreciate that. Let's see, so that's the music. Who should play this game? If you haven't picked that up already, if you've played Ocarina of Time and you want more of that experience, not something necessarily better, but just you want more, like an expansion pack that like gives you double the amount of dungeons, more place to explore, but all the same items, kind of a similar plot. The Sealed Palace is for you. It's a fully fledged 3D Zelda game that's really light on story, but is otherwise a complete package. It took me more than 20 hours, and I did not 100% everything. It's not like The Missing Link. It's not like Dawn and Dusk, where it's like a short little bite-sized experience. You know, you get to run around to a couple places, do one dungeon, and then you're done. It's a complete 3D Zelda game, which is cool. It's a little like AM2R in that regard, like a fan-made Zelda game that can go toe-to-toe with actual Zelda games, which I feel like The Missing Link and Dawn and Dusk couldn't do. So definitely check it out if that sounds interesting to you. And overall, I would say it was a positive experience. I enjoyed my playthrough. It gave me exactly what I've been hungry for in a 3D Zelda game on the N64. And it's leaving me refreshed for Tears of the Kingdom. I'm looking forward to seeing, like, okay, here's classic 3D Zelda. Now Tears of the Kingdom, blow me out of the water. I want to see all the new stuff you do. So those are my overall thoughts. If you have not played the Sealed Palace and that sounds interesting, you're like, hey, I want to play that too, check it out. I recommend it. I'd give it at least a 7 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. Not as good as the Legend of Banjo-Kazooie, Jiggies of Time. That's still probably my favorite Zelda ROMhack, but this one's up there with it. Definitely a positive experience worth checking out. With that said, moving into spoiler territory, from here on out, just some highlights and lowlights. I guess 2 highlights, 2 lowlights of the game. Something that I really enjoyed. My highlight of the game, for sure, were the 2 water arcs. There was actually only 1 water dungeon in the game. They cut Jabu Jabu's belly. That one wasn't in here. Instead, we get Link's Nightmare dungeon. And then the water temple's still there. It's a new water temple, but there's a water temple. So, but the whole arc, the whole journey from start to finish, finding, getting to, and completing the Nightmare dungeon and the water temple was fantastic. Really up there as a really positive Zelda experience. Not as high as Jiggies of Time's Forest Temple, which was like an incredible masterpiece experience, but very high up there. I really was looking forward to every moment I got with that. As a refresher for Link's Nightmare, first you gotta go through the ice cavern, which you think is gonna be a dungeon. Totally comes off as that is the next dungeon after Dodongo's Cavern, but it's not. You get to the end of it and you're like, what do I do? But there's this mansion across on the other mountain and you can like slide over there, get into the mansion, and whoa, intriguing music starts playing. You're like looking around and you're like, ooh, this basement's a little freaky. What's going on in this mansion? You find this guy who might be dead. Game doesn't tell you, which is amazing. I love that. And play us coy with you on that. Guy looks like he's dead right next to a blood red painting that looks like it's been painted with the guy's blood. You approach the painting, whoosh, now you're in a nightmare dungeon. Woo! That was cool. And then like they kind of take some things from Jabu Jabu's Ballet and mix it in there to give it like a grotesque, like horrific feel to it. That was awesome. That was great. That was fantastic. And then the other water dungeon, the water temple, the whole build up to that was super player driven. Great example of really the lead up to a dungeon at its best. Honestly, it's one of the best lead up to a dungeon I've seen in a Zelda game. You're kind of just left to wander after the forest temple. You don't really know what to do now that you've got the bow, but you go check out a couple places, a bow and the hook shot. You go check out a couple places. You come across this fishing village. It's like, what's going on in the fishing village? Looks a little eerie. Spooky music plays in the house, but you look around and you can't really do anything. There's like a piece of heart at the bottom of a lake, but you can't get down there because you don't have the iron boots. So you're like, well, shit, now I gotta go find the iron boots. And in the original Ocarina of Time, the iron boots are in the ice cavern. So you're like, hey, I'm an adult. Let's go back to the ice cavern. And that's probably what the dungeon item was there, the iron boots. Wrong. You get there, and you get some other stuff that helps you get to the water temple, but it's not the iron boots. You still can't do it. And the whole time, Navi's just chittering on about, what the fuck is up with this fishing village? That's what she's like. She's like, there's something going on with this fishing village. We have to figure out what's going on with it. So you're like, damn, there's really something going on there. What's going on? Gotta figure that out. But I don't have the iron boots, so I can't get to the bottom of the lake at the fishing village, right? So then you have to like figure out where the iron boots are, and you find, oh, there's a mini dungeon underneath the fishing village. Oh shit, that's cool. And there's like Reded in there, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? But you can't swim down to the bottom because you need the golden scale to get down there. So now you gotta leave and gotta go find the golden scale. And you're like, oh my god, where's the golden scale? That was bullshit. That was bullshit. It's hidden in the fishing hole. Fishing hole was located in bullshit location. Okay, so, well, I'll get to that. That'll be a low. But you get the fishing scale, the golden scale. Now you can get the iron boots. You get the iron boots. Now you can go to the water temple. Or now you go down to that piece of heart. Whoa, turns out right next to the piece of heart at the bottom of the lake is a dungeon, the water temple. And you see it and you're like, damn, I'm going to check that out. And then you get there. Oh, it's so good. You get to the water temple and you're like, all right, this is it. We're going to do the water temple, but you need fire arrows to beat it. And nothing in the game has led you toward the fire arrows at all. So now you got to leave the water temple and you're like, where the fuck do I go? But, well, you've got the iron boots and there was something else in the sacred realm that you needed the iron boots. So you go over, check that out. Doesn't give you the fire arrows. In fact, it gives you something for a totally different dungeon. So now you're like, oh, geez, well, maybe I'll check out another thing while I'm here. Then you get the fire arrows. Now you can go back to the water temple and finish the water temple and finally be done with it all. That whole big adventure. It's so great. That could have been a ROMhack in itself. Wow. I love that. That was, I would call it a 10 out of 10 experience, except you never find out what's up with the fishing village. Which, hey, I like a mystery, and I like that I walked away not knowing what was up with it. Being a little like, why were there Reded down there? Why was there a cage at the bottom of the lake with a skeleton in it? Like, that stuff's cool. I love that. I don't need everything explained to me. But the fact that I didn't get any payoff, any sort of whisper or murmur or hint at why I should be suspicious of this fishing village other than the suspicious music, That was a bummer. So it was a high, could have been a 10 out of 10 moment, like the Forest Temple in Jiggies of Time, but it was more of a 9 out of 10 moment. But that was great. That was great. Fantastic. Those are my 2 highs of the game, for sure. 2 lows. Biggest low is that there's no text walkthrough of the Sealed Palace. I should have mentioned that in the non-spoiler area because that is the biggest con of it. There's no text walkthrough. There's only walkthroughs on YouTube, video form. That means to look it up, you might get thumbnails that spoil things in the game. You might get recommended more videos about Sealed Palace that have spoilers in it. You might have to search through a video to find the part that you're in and see spoilers. It's not a good way, and because it's all in video, it's really hard to look up a specific thing. You can't do a text search for it. So you kind of have to browse videos and find the right one and get spoilers that way. So some things, like I mentioned the fishing hole, which is in a dark ass corner in a cave that seems to be completely optional. You wouldn't even notice the fishing hole's there because it's in a pitch black spot and out in the corner. There's no sign for it. Stuff like that. It's really frustrating. You need a walkthrough for it. There's no NPC talking about it that I found. And you just spoil your shit. You spoil shit and ruin surprises trying to find how to progress. That's annoying. And another low would be the stupid hover boots segments in the church's catacombs and in the final dungeon. Those drove me bonkers. It was really only for 10 minutes. I felt like half an hour, but I looked it up. It was only 10 minutes. It was bad game design. Dumb shit like there's spot you have to go here, but you can only spot you have to go here, but you're here and you have to use the hover boots to get into this space, but you can't turn with the hover boots and the fan blows you past it or not close enough to it. So it's just you're trying a million times over and over and over again just to get into this small little space until finally you look it up. The other person who's done this stuff struggling through it too, so you're like, geez, they don't even know what to do. And then they do some dumb shit like hook shot to a cage over here and you're like, what? How was I supposed to know to do that? I give these developers total credit where it's due. They made the game for free. It's mostly completely seamless. It's good design throughout. I'm not saying that they're bad developers. Far from it. But it was made by amateurs, and there are 2 rooms that really show that. That really made me pull my hair out. Made me mad. And that's that. That's all I have to say about the Sealed Palace. Overall, it was a good experience. Some really high highs that have got me. I'm still thinking about that freaking stretch between when I beat the Forest Temple and got to the Water Temple. Hours long stretch. That was so good. That was so good. I wish Nintendo would take from that. That was, unbelievable. Except for the fucking fishing hole. Fuck that. Positive experience. I recommend it to anybody who has played all of the 3D Zelda games. It's not better than any of the 3D Zelda games, the official ones. So if you're like, oh, I'd like to play another 3D Zelda, and you have not played Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword or Majora's Mask or Wind Waker, go play those first. But if you're somebody like me who has played every single Zelda game, minus Spirit Tracks, and and are looking for more of an experience that Nintendo is never going to give you again, is exactly what I needed. Highly recommend. Either 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. Not sure where I'm at on that. I liked it. I had a good time with it. Possibly really liked it. Check it out. Those are my thoughts on the Sealed Palace and my review of it. I look forward to Tears of the Kingdom on Friday. And if you're a Zelda fan like me, have fun. Friday's going to be a great day. Take care.